Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pennies to Dollars, where we talk about frugal living, saving money, cutting expenses, and living our best life on less. Today, we are going to talk about the truth about debt in the United States, and I'm also going to share with you some of the things I do to reduce costs so that I have money to do what I want. Let's get started. So it is astonishing to look at 2023 numbers in America. American households have a total of 17.29 trillion in debt. And that is from the third quarter of 2023. The average household owes about $103,358 as of the second quarter of 23. And the total credit card debt in America is $1.08 trillion from the third quarter in 2023. Auto loans are 1.6 trillion as of the third quarter of 2023, and the average monthly new car payment is $729 a month. The average monthly used car payment is $528 a month. And of course, credit card debt is the most expensive debt to carry. So you want to reduce that first thing because that has some of the highest rates we've ever seen. The total debt in America has gone up $2.5 trillion since 2020. And average American households spend about 10% of their income on debt. Now, for those of us that don't have debt, and there's quite a few that watch this channel, that means that actually raises that average for the people that do have debt, because that is just averaged amongst everyone, and it's not factoring in how many of us actually don't have any debt. And foreclosures went up 18% from September of 22 to September of 23. And that is a very sad, sad number there, meaning people are losing their homes. And then consumer debt went up overall 4.15% in 2023, according to the National New York Reserve Bank. So how can we tackle this issue? I can either know that I'm staying on track, or I can think that I'm staying on track. If we don't have a budget, that's the first step. But if we don't actually use that budget and actually track our spending to see where we're falling on that budget, then it's just a guideline on a piece of paper. And I've lived like that for so many years. I had a budget. I thought I was doing what I was supposed to do. I spent money. I still had money in my checking account, and I used that as my gauge on whether or not I was doing okay, whether or not I was making all of my payments. But then as time went on, I realized that that was not a gauge to how much I was actually spending and whether or not that budget was actually accurate. I could have saved so much more money if I would have just tracked what I was actually spending. That was the only way that I would know what I was spending in each category, how much I was going over, or if I was going over at all. And by tracking that, it would give me an idea of where I could cut back or where I needed to increase it to see if my budget was even in the ballpark. So when you track, it is easier to see where you're actually overspending. And then you can look for sustainable ways to cut back so that you can still meet all of your needs. So when I talk to you about these things, it is because I have actually been there. At some point, I sat down and really took a hard look at what I was spending, what I owed, what my payments were, and I realized just making payments wasn't enough. I started calculating it what I call the pennies to dollars way. And I started looking at what I owed in interest alone, who I owed interest to, how much interest I was being charged per month by every single person and place that I owed. And I owed over $600 to $700 a month just in interest. I started looking at that as I have to make $600 or $700 a month before I pay $1 in utilities, $1 in anything. I have to make that much first. I'm never going to get out of this hole. And my kids are almost all out of the house. I'm never going to be able to retire. And so I started hitting that hardcore. And I took the place that I owed the most interest to, and I started tackling it first. I thought my goal is to get down to zero interest that I'm paying per month. Then I will be able to really tackle all of these other debts that I have. So I started tackling the most interest first, getting that one knocked out, going to the next one with the highest interest, knocking it out until I got down to about $200 per month in interest. And I knew I was making headway. And I just kept that up until I got out of debt. So there are a lot of sustainable ways that I have put in practice that help me not overspend. Some of those are I just don't browse like the sale emails unless I have something I specifically need. I don't have a Pinterest account. I don't have a Poshmark account. I don't have an Etsy account. I don't spend time looking at that. And I speak to people that sometimes get a lot of their ideas off of Pinterest. And I'm not saying that it is a bad thing, but when I look at things like that, I might be more enticed to purchase things that I don't need. And it would take a lot of my time that I want to spend somewhere else. So not only do I want to spend my money somewhere else, I want to spend my time somewhere else. So that's why I don't spend time looking at those things. And that is a sustainable way for me to save money by removing that temptation. I keep my ingredients for cooking basic and simple. And there's a lot of things that I don't buy that many households do that consider these products basic and simple. So we all have to determine what those are. For instance, I've never used tomato paste. That's something I've never used in anything that I've ever cooked. I've always found a way around it. So there are different things in everybody's household that's going to be considered basic and simple. But looking at the ingredients that we keep on a regular basis as staples can help a lot. Sometimes just reducing what we think staples are can also help. I used to admire my dad because a bill would come in the mail and he would immediately sit down and write out a check. We were farmers. We had small acreage. We lived on what we could produce in the summer. That was like selling corn on the cob by the highway for 10 for $1. That was baling alfalfa, using it for our animals, storing some for the winter, and selling some if we had extra. That was growing wheat and taking it to the elevator. Those were the only ways that we had to have income during the year, and we had to make it last the whole time. So when you think about people that get paid monthly, this is even harder when you're a farmer because you just get paid basically in the summer unless you've held on to that wheat and not sold it. So when you're a farmer, you just have income at those times of the year and it has to last the whole time. So I was really impressed when he could do that. And that was always my goal, to be able to sit down and just write out a check. Well, now when I get the bills, either by email or mail, I schedule them immediately to come out. I deduct them from my checking account so I know that they are paid. So I met that goal, being able to pay things when they came in. I remember having stacks of bills, trying to figure out how I was going to fit them all in what I had coming in for the month. I remember sometimes having to rob Peter to pay Paul, as they say, to try to figure out who I could be a little bit late on and who I had to pay right now, or there was going to be consequences, and trying to juggle those. I'm so thankful that I no longer have to do that. I look at my finances daily to make sure I know what I can't do and what I can do. And I stay on top of that with my planning. I'm mindful of the use of all of my assets, no matter what it is. I try really hard to make them get a little farther down the road if I can by repairing things that I have the ability to do. Even if it's not a beautiful repair, it will get me farther down the road. This had torn and the bars were coming through the side of my lawn chair. So I just pulled out my red thread and sewed it up. Is it beautiful? No, but it'll get me farther down the road. And unless you know where to look for it at, it is not even noticeable. I remember a time when I bought all kinds of cleaners. I tried to save money by getting them at the dollar store, but once I switched to vinegar and water and a little bit of bleach when I needed it, it has saved me so many hundreds of dollars. And I don't know why I didn't do that sooner. I think it's because I just didn't know that that was a good replacement. I watch how much dish soap I use. I use Ajax, the liquid dish soap. I feel like it's equal to the Dawn and so much less expensive. I also use less laundry detergent. I use less electricity. We also watch our portion sizes and how much I cook. I had to go from cooking for a family of 8 to cooking for a family of 2. And that was quite a transition, but I finally mastered that. And I just don't throw things out. If I buy something and I'm not really crazy about it, I will use it up anyway before I buy the next product, and I just won't buy that again. The other day, I had someone tell me that their husband had bought some dish soap that they normally didn't use. And they used it and it didn't suds up enough, so they just threw the entire bottle away after one use and went and bought the kind that they liked. That's something that I would have never done. I would have gone ahead and used it even though I didn't like it, just to use it up because I had already purchased it. I'm very mindful about my spending, about my budget, about what I spend money on and how long it lasts, so that I don't have to keep repurchasing things and I can stash that money back for things that I want later on that are more important to me. That's the whole key to being frugal. It's not being cheap. It's not having a household full of cheap, worthless items. It is using everything to its full potential so that you can spend the money in another area that's more meaningful to you. I'm even sparing with the candles that I have. I use them around holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas, or when the electricity goes out, but I normally just don't burn them just for atmosphere. I try to save those so that I have them on special family gatherings so that we can enjoy them together. My motto is saving anything helps. So I try to look at all of those pennies that add up to dollars, which is why I named my channel Pennies to Dollars. I had a mentor tell me once that if you take care of the pennies, the dollars will take care of themselves. And she was so right. And that's how I try to live my life now, because those pennies do add up to dollars, and all those little bits of savings, they do matter and they do help. I only shop sales. I stock my home with sales, clearance, best buys, and the loss leaders that are on the fronts of the flyers to the grocery stores to entice you to come in to buy more things. I know my prices and I choose the items that I know will store for a while or that I can actually use, and I plan all of my meals around that. If you are struggling, I encourage you to look at the fact that every little bit you save does matter. Give yourself props for that. When we can save in those small ways and see that they do matter and they do add up, it encourages us to look at more small ways we can save. And the more you put in place the easier your life is, the less stress that you have, because the more money that you have. Many people spend a lot of their day thinking about money, how they're going to pay their bills, how they're going to make ends meet, how they're going to make that next payment on something. But when you can put a lot of those things in place, your cabinets start filling up with food. You start having more abundance. You start having less stress. You start being able to pay your bills without having to worry about where the money is going to come from. And I wish that for everyone. I want to thank you for listening today. And if you have any comments, please list them below on ways that we can save. I think it's really great that we help each other in the comments, and you guys help me too. You come up with ideas that I haven't thought of before, and I implement those as well. Have a great day, and I hope to see you in the next video.